So, the next question around this is about the decision logic.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the time to try and give the listeners and the viewers the opportunity to try and explore your thinking that's wrapped around, the decision-making process that you're there. So, when resources tighten up and tight purse strings get a little bit more constrained, what are your decision filters to actually make some of these decisions? Because, lack of resources, higher targets, etc. Can you give us a little bit more of a perspective on, your thinking that goes behind your decisions?
No, it's proprietary, so I can't.
It's okay. I actually entered into ChatGPT and they told me all about you, Jeremy.
Oh yeah, I already knows what my decision-making criteria is. Huh? What goes into decisions from how do I?
Yeah, filter it through.
How do I filter it through? I understanding the current dynamics, I tend to filter through how do I create efficiency and automate things so that we can function at a higher level and take on higher level activity that can make a difference, right? So that's where my mind goes in these things. It's not gonna, some of what I said, like my last answer, which is like, you can't keep doing the same old thing. So how do we, and there's a lot, the cool thing about the environment we're in is we're in some unprecedented challenges and it's getting harder and harder and everything's changing rapidly. Yeah. But the technology available is like never before too. So we have potentially access to tools that could completely change how we attack things that we can use to attack the unprecedented problems, right? So it's kind of a colliding. So it's like thinking through how do I maximize those things.
But that's in itself, right, is quite a challenge, because then that goes against conservative thinking about introducing tools.
Yes.
The process to actually even get it approved and then to actually implement.
Yeah.
Because, we also know that making business cases for any capital investment, either in software or in people, takes a long time.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess it does. And I guess I'm somewhat benefited from the fact that I've been thinking this way for a while. So I have some of the work that we're working on, the way I'm challenging my team to do is we have a lot of the tools and a lot of AI capabilities. How do we now, but we're probably using 60% of the capability, right? How do we maximize and tweak that engine, and how do we get that data cleaner and more connected so we can move faster and identify things quicker? And because some of the name of the game isn't just like I need to get these savings. It's like if I can get them now, I have a bigger impact than if I take a year to do it, right? So all those types of things. So I benefited from that. But I also think because I thought about in the past, I had the same question when I was doing it 5 years ago, thinking that way, like, how do you get investment? It's like you have to eventually start doing it, otherwise you will be left behind. So this, to me, it isn't well, I can't do that. That means you're just going to keep plugging away, with a little pick when you've got a giant glacier you got to tackle, and and I don't have time to figure out. You have to go figure out how to get something more useful, because you're not going to tackle the problems if you don't.
Does that mean, through that whole process, the way that you represented things to your management team gets a little bit more, let's say, aggressive? Your risk profile changes a little bit more, what you're actually representing, and even the appetite for the organization to actually think, it's okay, Jeremy, we know that we've actually got to go for it. We've got to go for it. Yeah. And if it's a mistake, that's okay.
No, that's a good question. And the risk profile for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Oh, because it is, because you do have to start saying things. I will deliver X dollars if I do this, and then you have to do it, right? So,
especially I put it in the context, right? You know that procurement head that I was talking about. Representing 40% of the $100 million that they've actually got to, try and save. If that person doesn't deliver it, then two things are going to happen, right?
And then when you go and say, and I need to spend $5 million in order to deliver it, the pressure to make sure you deliver goes up, right? Because
Yep.
now you have to deliver 45 to make up like for the 5 you. So I do think that that's out there. I think that's always been out there,
Mhm.
but the play it safe, the days of playing it safe, just are not.
Mhm.
People that continue to do that are going to feel that pressure spike anyway.
Yeah.
So
And then even through that line of thinking
Mhm.
where, you know, you can't wait, do you feel that you've got to try and over-justify the decision-making process? Are you finding that you're trying to scavenge for as much data as possible to justify the decision-making or the proposition?
I think you have to justify it. I think there's also a reputation that comes into play. Like if you've delivered and you've done it more than once, that creates political capital that you can use in place of some of that. Because you can beat something to death and not get it there, right? So eventually you do have to say this. You have to feel good about yourself, right? Like you have to be like, because everything's a risk, right?
Yep.
It's a calculated risk, but it's a risk that I think I'm confident my team can execute on, and take that forward and say, here's the ROI on it. This is what I can deliver. I feel good about it, right? In doing that, I think that's the name of the game.
Well, you've been there long enough, so you obviously do have the political capital. But then, if I then move the thought process and decision-making around, some of the decisions of making a structural change versus a one-time implementation to actually get that savings, what's that trade-off in that thinking around that as well? Because, yes, structurally, if I make this, I might not get the benefit in the first 3 or 4 months. But if I go for that one-time thing, I'm going to get my $1 million, 20% of my target, whatever it is.
Yeah. I think you got to do both of those things, right? Like some of those $1 million targets, if it's big enough, do that. But you got to start thinking about those structural things so that you can keep getting those $1 million targets. Otherwise, you don't. So you have to do that. You can't avoid that. You have to keep your eye on the foundational pieces to keep innovating. So
I think underneath that jersey, you got a Superman cape.
I don't think so.
To hit both.
All right.
Excellent.
Game
Next
2.
7 minutes.
Let's do it.
Come on, Luis.
Got this.
I always said, wow, Luis, those guns of yours are pretty impressive. You've always hidden them behind the suit.
Yes. First time I wear a T-shirt, This is
I
great.
know. Yeah,
I'm trying. I have to take care of myself.
Well, not only that, You've now got a new audience. You just never know, right?
Yeah.
So the key question that is coming up in this round is the decision logic.
Okay.
Your decision logic.
Yep.
And we want to try and explore the thinking around some of the decision filters that you make before you announce or before you decide or before you pivot. Okay. So can you give us a little bit more insight into, what filters you go through the decision making, on, staffing, on savings objectives, on targets, on, opportunities?
Okay. So how I make decisions around staffing, can you narrow that a little bit, or is it how I prioritize?
Yeah, how you prioritize.
Okay.
You're given a target, and all of a sudden the target's gone A plus 10%, 20%, 30%. Now your decision logic with regards to how do I and what do I look at and prioritize to actually make sure that I can meet those additional targets head on.
Yeah, I think we touched on this at the beginning. I really go to redesign. So one of the things that has me really excited, and we kind of touched on this, but actually this week, yesterday, I met with 2 of my team members. I want to move more to control, and we've talked about this. I know that we can, choosing a target to save 20 million, 30 million sounds good on paper. But again, we've talked about the logic. And my supply chain people know about this, and finance people know about this. You ask supply chain to save 20 million, you take a category, you look at the 12 months historical spend, assume that utilization, negotiate a new price point, and then project that out. But you can't take that to the bank. My finance leaders know it. We talk about it. We joke about it in the hallway, that they know that if I say I saved $1 million in this category, we're not going to be able to take that out of the budget, right? But it's funny because then we all laugh about it, but then we still play the game.
Yeah.
So one of the things that has me a little bit more passionate recently, and or feel more passionate, and I think it's the right decision, and you can start small. We're going to choose 2 contract categories that we just renegotiated. We believe we're saving money. The actual target is TBD, to be determined. But we're also cleaning our data, so I think it's going to be much easier to do this. If I can now look at that category, so trauma or cardiac rhythm management, and we know how many procedures we're doing per month, what does that volume metric look like, right? So cost per procedure,
Right.
units per procedure.
Yep.
So volume and cost, right? So it's two simple categories. We got the clean data now. Let's start measuring that. Once we can start measuring on this month on how it's moving forward. Once we get 2 months worth of data, we can then go back, if we feel comfortable that it's clean, go back a year and start doing year-over-year analysis. Because I think, again, going back to transparency, I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit, but this is like a real one. It's going to be great to go to a finance leader and say, our costs went up 3%, or it actually stayed flat, or it dipped down 3%. So it may not be the 20% savings you thought we were going to get, but now this is real. We can actually now start projecting a better budget next year based on this utilization. It's also going to be more better conversations with our physicians, right? So if a new line extension comes out, and now the cost went up 10% per procedure, was that worth it? Are we comfortable paying 10% more per procedure, or do we need to think about when we use this new technology?
Sure.
That's exciting to me.
Yeah.
So I think going back to your question, going back to the beginning, the intro to this episode, it's redesign. So I want to choose 2 to 3 categories, test it out, and if that works, let's scale it up by spend.
So when you actually think about that, then are you seeing that your risk and your appetite for risk, your profile is changing because you're going to have to make more decisions quickly? You're going to obviously have to try and either choose, bigger categories that are going to provide bigger savings, or you're going to actually have to try and do more with less.
I think we're going to do more with less, but I think we're going to be more informed.
Yeah.
So that's what my mind doesn't go towards labor. I think me and some of my leaders think about what kind of labor we need. I think we're doing okay from that perspective. I think these conversations that are more transparent and more data-driven are going to lead to bigger conversations across the enterprise. Like, we're spending more. Are we comfortable with that? Or do we want to save the money? How do we partner with physician leaders or other leaders that have more informed conversations about what needs to change? So yeah, I don't know if the risk goes up. I think.
Do you think your risk profiling around thinking about I'm going to tackle? You made this decision that you're going to go for 2 categories. You believe it's going to yield you all of these particular benefits. So you've now extracted resources to actually focus on that. That's a bet. Right.
So good question. I don't feel like that's extracted resources. That's why it goes back to redesign. I think we had a team that was doing work that was lower value. So if I could shift 2 resources to do this, that's why, again, redesign is key. I think that we're redesigning the department, how people do work, and I think that we're allocating internal resources to projects that are going to yield a bigger output.
Okay, so that's a nice segue into the next sort of line of thinking. Where does your mind go with regards to structural changes versus one-time, let's say, bluebirds that you can actually run for? You got the next 12 months. Where does this decision-making process go with regards to thinking, wow, if I kick off this particular project, I might only get 10% of the savings that I actually require, but long-term, it's going to be 30, 40%. Versus, I've got this, bluebird over here. It's a great savings. I can get $1 million. What's your thinking with regards to making that trade-off? Which one?
Structural. So I lean towards structural. So I have to walk a fine line. My team and I have to walk a fine line. I think we still need to hit the target that's going to be put in front of us. But I think this is the year to run some parallel initiatives. And if we can demonstrate that there's bigger value in cost control and true value analysis by patient procedure, I think hopefully then we can have a conversation about how we position our savings targets the following year. I still need to do a little bit of both, but that's why we reshuffled the deck internally. So we restructured the team. So we have a smaller team now that's doing more experimental work. And the work that was being done before, in my opinion, was very low value. Right. So it's not a high risk for me. But I think if we do these 2 categories, that's not a bluebird for me. I think if we do those categories and it works, now we scale that. Now we start allocating more resources towards that. And then the question becomes, how can we do something similar on the purchase services side or indirect side?
I've got a solution for you.
I'm sure. I'm sure you do.